Alright, hello folks, and thank you for joining me. Hope I'm coming through clearly, but not too loud and clearly. um, alright, I'm here today, and to kind of clear up a controversy, or maybe not clear it up in some people's minds, it will never be cleared up until they make up their own mind. Therefore, part of this video will be giving you the sources that you can search and look this stuff up, and there's tons of material out there. Excuse me, team. Regarding this subject, and the subject is Lucifer and or Satan. Okay, on my Mind Crime channel, probably my most popular video, which I actually did create. It's a really good video. It's a really informative video. And in context, it is correct. However, I get a lot of people commenting, okay, Lucifer is not Satan. Satan is not Lucifer. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. But it's my most viewed video on this channel. It's 81,000 views. 81,042. So since the time space allowed, of course, with all the material we're going to cover, I'm going to have to post this on my Freemasonic channel, and I'll make it a response to this video here on this channel. And if you're interested, if you have a quarrel about whether Lucifer is Satan or not, you can watch this video here and do your own research, make up your own mind. I mean, everybody's human here. Most of us anyway are human, and humans need experience. Nobody can tell you anything. Okay, you may accept some things that some people tell you, but you're only going to accept it truly if you have the experience, or if it rings true through your own experience to you. That's what we're here for, is to experience, to learn. And not to evolve, as Oprah says, or a lot of other people. No, we're not evolving, we're learning. There's a difference. And so with that said, now let me just give my own personal view. Okay, obviously there's a connection and yet a confusion, because in Isaiah 14, where a lot of people say he's talking about the king of Tyre, or the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, thinking that he's a god. A lot of people just take that in a mundane, material way, as thinking, okay, he was worshiping the pagan god Lucifer, who is also an Italian pagan god, I guess, and we know that goes back to Mystery Babylon, refers to as Venus, the bright and morning star. This is also connected to a verse in Matthew where Jesus talks about, I beheld Satan as lightning falls from heaven. So they get the lightning fall from heaven, the bright and morning star. Later in Revelations, I believe, Jesus is also referred to as the morning star, so then people get confused about Lucifer and Jesus being the same entity. I can see where all this confusion comes in. It is quite easily to get confused, and the main confusion is in translation. How it's translated in a lot of modern versions of the Bible as morning star or day star, compared to the King James Version, which actually says Lucifer. It's the only time that Lucifer under that name is mentioned in the Bible itself, in the modern Christian Bible that the canon accepted. Okay, now to find the truth of the matter, you really have to read other books that are not in the regular canon, such as the Book of Enoch, etc. And I can't cover everything in the time. You know, I can make a 3-hour video about this subject alone, and probably even longer than that, and still not please everyone. However, okay, whether you believe Lucifer, as in this video here that people question this on, it talks about Lucifer being the angelic name of Satan before he rebelled or turned to sin. Okay, now Satan was created before the world was created, before Adam and Eve. He was already around, and he was created as an angel or a cherub in service of the Lord, and he was well liked and loyal at that time, until the time that he fell, or until the time that he rebelled. Now, the time that he rebelled is before the Garden of Eden story and the Adam and Eve, and the temptation of Eve and the corruption of Eve, okay, because it's more than just the temptation or sharing of knowledge. It is an actual corruption of the angels coming down. Now, some people want to get confused about this, so let's clear that up too while we're making this video. The Genesis 6, where it talks about the sons of God found the women fair, and they came down and took them as mates, etc. Okay, a lot of people try to say, well, the sons of God is just referring to the tribe of man that was loyal to God on the time, and the ones that were not the sons of God was the other tribes, and they mingled tribes. Okay, wrong. Okay, and I can prove it's wrong in Job alone. Okay, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about this, but just go to Job chapter 2, and it talks about the sons of God who came unto the Lord, and Satan was with them, and they spoke unto the Lord in the Lord's place. Okay, they were not men, they were not just a tribe of men considered and called the sons of God. The sons of God were the sons of God. They were in the heavenly realms with God. Okay, and they're called the sons of God because everything is a creation of God. We are all sons of God. Okay, there is the one Son of God, Jesus Christ, who was God incarnate. Okay, he was the Father and the Son. They were one. Okay, here on earth. He came himself through Jesus Christ. Okay, but so don't be confused about that Son of God being the sons of God. Okay, but don't be confused about the sons of God not being the creations of God in heaven, and just being a tribe of men who were loyal and faithful to God here on earth. Because and nowadays, quite frankly, everybody's calling them aliens. But I digress, and I'm not going to get into that subject right now. But that's what it is, and it is what it is. And so, but back to this topic here. Okay, so this video is speaking about Lucifer being the name of Satan before he fell, and then of course Satan. Now, Satan is a term for resistor. Okay, because after the fall, he had no longer a name in God's eyes. God did not. God throughout the Bible calls him either Satan or the devil. The devil, I forget exactly what the translation is. Maybe we'll run across it again here. But the Satan means resistor, and he resisted God, and that's why he's called Satan at that time. Before that, now, some people think he was Lucifer, the fallen angel, or the angel Lucifer, or the cherub Lucifer. And he was cast out of heaven and down to earth when he rebelled, or whatever exactly he did, we don't know. Okay, what it was he did exactly, but basically he was the original sinner, right? It wasn't Adam, was original sin. But I'm not going to get into that either. But really, I mean, if you look at it, the serpent was there first, right? He was already, Satan was already rebelled before he tempted Eve and Adam and got them to rebel, as the story goes. Which there was more to the story than just that. Again, we're talking the seed of the serpent and stuff. Again, proof of that goes when God talks about, I will put enmity between thee and the woman's seed. So, now whether or not you believe or want to believe that Lucifer was a cherub, and that he then fell and then is known as Satan, you have to make up your own mind on that. Many people do believe that. Now, on this video, I had already posted a long time ago well, not a long time ago, but a while back, about the Enochian Judaism during the Second Temple period, before what we know as modern day Christianity. They interpreted, okay, the Isaiah as applicable to Satan and presented him as a fallen angel cast out of heaven. Christian tradition, influenced by this, came to use the Latin word for morning star, aka Venus, Lucifer, as a proper name for Satan, as he was before his fall. Okay, as a result, Lucifer has become a byword for Satan in the church and popular literature, and it's propagated by Hollywood and everything else since then. Now, however, Samael, also Samiel or Samiel, is an important archangel in Talmudic and post-Talmudic lore, figure who is the accuser, seducer, and destroyer. He is considered in legend a member of the heavenly host. In the New Testament is named Satan and chief of the evil spirits. So that's what I had written there. That is what's commonly known. Samiel is Satan. Okay, now some people say Lucifer is Satan. Whether his name was Lucifer before the fall or Samiel, I cannot tell you. I can tell you what is known and what is considered by the church before and after so-called Christianity was formed. Okay, and that's why I wrote this specific definitions in here as such for those who bother to read the info box. I go on and talk about some other angels in here, archangels, Michael, Gabriel. There were a third of the angels that were rebelled with Satan as he fell, and they all had their own names as well at the time. Now, and of course, some people say, oh, there's no such thing as fallen angels. There's no such thing as demons. I'm not even going to entertain you people. Okay? I've met demons. I've met Satan. again, that's another personal story of mine, my crossroads experience, where I was given a chance to sell my soul for worldly gain. And I proclaimed Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior at that point in time during that experience, which was a very supernatural, magical experience during a time that I consider my soul quest, which was 1993 and ending in 1994, with thus my Mind Crime 1994 name on this channel here. Or in this case, since this is posted on my Freemasonic channel, it would be my other channel there. So we're going to just review some information regarding this. And again, everybody can make up their own mind what they believe or what they think. There's a lot of discussion about this. It has been an ongoing debate, as I have said to people who have commented for many times and for a long time. So again, let's check. Let's start off right here with Peter. Excuse me again. Casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Okay. Whom resist steadfast in faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world. But God of all grace, who hath called us unto his eternal glory by Jesus Christ, after that ye may have suffered a while, make you perfect, establish, strengthen, settle you. To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Okay, so the devil as a roaring lion walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Now, that is in a direct relation to and I'm going to get my manual Bible out here. I don't have I can open it up actually. We'll use this same Bible page for that. Let's go to Egads. I need to go up. My eyes are failing me here. There. Okay, right there. Job. There's Job 1. We'll go to Job 2, 1. And as I was talking about again earlier, in relation to Genesis 6, where it talks about the sons of God, here it is again. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said unto Satan, From whence comest thou? And Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. Again, back to the Peter we just read, where he talks about running through the earth, looking for those that he can devour. Okay, and the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God, and escheweth evil? And still he holdeth fast his integrity, although thou movest me against him to destroy him without cause. And Satan answered the Lord and said, Skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath will he give for his life. But put forth thine hand now, and touch his bone and flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, he is in thine hand, but save his life. Okay, so Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord and smote Job, and bore sore boils. And so the Lord gave him permission to test Job, in other words, in this case, and proving that Job would not forsake the Lord even in times of turmoil and trouble. And I myself have been through the Job experience more than once, and in fact constantly throughout my life. And not that I'm an upright, super righteous dude or nothing, because I'm not. I'm a sinner. But I have never forsaken the Lord, and I never will. And I know through experience of His existence. It's not a belief. It's real. I could make whole videos of my experiences and the supernatural nature of my whole life. But that's private stuff, and frankly, people have to, again, like I said at the beginning, you have to experience yourself. Even if I made those videos, would you believe me? Actually, no. Half the videos would be so far off the beaten path, you wouldn't understand them, let alone believe them. You would think I was a raving lunatic, okay, because of the magical aspect, the supernatural events that I have experienced are beyond mundane man's comprehension, period. Until you experience stuff like that, you would never believe it. You would think it was something out of a fairy tale or a movie or something. But my whole life has been like a movie. But I digress. Again, never mind all that. So let me see if I can find one of these articles that I wanted to read. Okay, that's not it. Alright, is Lucifer the devil in Isaiah 14:12, the KJV argument against modern translations? And I could have done a separate screencast to make this print bigger. I don't think I can do anything about it here, no. So I'm just going to read it, and this is a decent article. It's at Bible.org. Article Lucifer, Devil, Isaiah, Argument Against Modern Translations. I'll see if I can't maybe leave some links in the box for y'all as I'm making this. So you can come find these things and read them yourself. But the argument that modern translations deny the deity of Christ is based on the connecting of several dots. First, in Isaiah 14:12. Oh, and if I hadn't said it already, by the way, a lot of the connection that we get in our modern understanding is where in Isaiah it talks, and let us go back to our Bible real quick. Let's go to Isaiah 14. And I'll just scroll down to 12. And actually, it's what everybody should do when they're reading the Bible. I know through the church, because of the way preachers preach on the pulpit, people have been brought into habit of taking one verse out of a chapter and applying it to whatever they feel like applying it to, like the preacher does, and skipping the rest. And I hate doing that. Whenever I read a chapter or verse, I read the whole chapter with the verse because I want it in context to the whole story. But for this purpose, 12. That how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? Okay. Now, there's the argument that this is referring to the king of Babylon, that he thought himself a god, as in the pagan god Venus at the time, the worship of the planets, and he thought himself as God. Now, however, the Lord and the devil both, they work through people. Okay, so it's just like, remember Saddam Hussein thought he was Nebuchadnezzar reborn or something. Nebuchadnezzar reborn, uh, and basically thought he was a god. Pharaohs, all through time, people think they're gods. Well, these are spirits inhabiting and working through these people. Okay, the spirit of Satan comes in, and whether he was actually indwelling Nebuchadnezzar at the time, and that's why. But if you read before it, uh, hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It has raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. All they shall speak, and they say unto thee, Art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, the noise of the bowels. The worm is spread under thee, the worms cover thee. O how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? Now, different translations say morning star, newer translations, or day star. And we'll get into the translation thing here in a second. But a lot of people would argue that and say, and I would probably be one of them, that at the time, the evil and the wickedness that was coming through the king of Babylon was of Satan, okay, dwelled in him and come and working through him. Now, but back to the point being, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground? Is also, it's why they consider this and connect this to Satan. One of the main reasons is because in Matthew, where Jesus says, and I saw Satan, behold, I saw Satan fall from heaven as lightning, or like lightning. They relate this to the same, art thou fallen from heaven. So automatically, through modern context, the fallen like lightning from heaven, and how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, connects Satan and Lucifer together. Okay? That's where it comes from mainly, as I see it. That's where people get their confusion and maybe correction. Again, I'm not committing at this point in this video yet to that. We're going to read some stuff first. So let's go back. The argument that modern translations deny the deity of Christ is based on connecting several dots. First, in Isaiah, the KJV, as we read, How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? Modern translations, except for in the New King James Version, have something like day star or morning star instead of Lucifer here. KJV, the King James Version, advocates the claim that Isaiah 14:12 must be a prophecy about the devil falling from heaven. There is some basis for this interpretation in Luke. Okay, it was in Luke, not Matthew, I'm sorry. Luke 10, I think it's said in Matthew too, though. But anyway, Luke 10:18 tells us, where Jesus tells his disciples, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Which, of course, in Hebrew, as we've determined in other videos that have come out, mainly, especially Jonathan Kleck and Clay's videos, where they take the Hebrew, Barack and Obama in Hebrew would lightning and from heaven. Again, we're not going to address that in this, but I'm just saying that's where it came from. Although Jesus may have spoken Hebrew at times, it is also known that he spoke in Aramaic. That's where we get the confusion of his other translation, where a lot of people think he said, why, Father, how art thou forsaken me, when he was on the cross, when actually nobody knows the translation of what he said exactly. The best translation is in Luke, where He doesn't say that he says that. He says what he really says, and it was invoking the Lord's power and uh, uh, contributing his soul to the Lord. It was not saying at all, and I have a whole nother video on that if you want to look at it. I forget what I call it right now, but it's quite clear in the context of the whole chapter. That is not what Jesus said. He would never say such a thing as that, and I proved it with the following and other scripture. Jesus knew what he was there to do. He knew that the Father had not forsaken him, and he would never say that the Father had forsaken him. The translators got that wrong. Now, whether they got that wrong in those chapters on purpose or accidentally is up for grabs. And then a lot of people will relate it clear back to the other scripture where it talks about who was it? Oh my gosh, see, my mind just went blank on that. But it's in that video I made. Was it Daniel? Maybe somebody else said it was, why art thou forsaken me? And they try to connect that in the Bible, and it's two different things. It was dew was in the desert, and was a different situation, different person. It had nothing to do with Jesus. It happened. That saying was before Jesus. But again, like I said, I point that out in that video. To continue on here, in Revelation 9:1, we read, I saw a star fallen from heaven to earth, and he was given a key to the shaft of the bottomless pit. These New Testament passages seem to be alluding to Isaiah 14:12, connecting the fall of the one mentioned there with the fall of Satan. Okay, that's basically what I just said a minute ago. Second, in 2 Peter 1:19, the KJV has, we have also a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto ye do well that ye take heed, as unto a light that shineth in the dark place, until the day dawn, and the day star arise in your hearts. For day star in the KJV, modern translations alternate between day star and morning star. Early Christian interpretations of this verse sees the day star or morning star as a reference to Jesus, based in part on an allusion to Numbers 24:7, a star shall rise out of Jacob. Okay, the light morning star is reference to Jesus, and it's also referenced in translation to this other verse to Lucifer. Okay, and so a lot of people confuse also that Jesus is the same as Lucifer, and which is untrue and silly, and it is all basically what you would say lost in translation is what the deal is. Third, the KJV advocates argue that if the word in Isaiah 14:12 is translated morning star, then modern translations are viewing Jesus as Satan, because as they claim the only morning star in the Bible is Jesus. Thus, if Lucifer is treated as morning star in Isaiah 14:12, then this is a denial of the deity of Christ. Fourth, they argue that God is not a God of confusion, therefore the modern translations, since they are confusing readers on the identification of the morning star, must be corrupt. To be frank, this is a rather convoluted argument that is grasping at straws. An examination of the evidence and logic of this argument will demonstrate this is to be very badly misinformed. In Isaiah 14:12, the KJV translators did not actually translate the Hebrew word, that word, as Lucifer. This word occurs only here in the Hebrew Old Testament. Most likely the KJV translators were not sure what to make of it, and simply duplicated the word used in the Latin Vulgate that translated that word. In the Vulgate, Isaiah 14:12 reads as follows: Commodo sisti di calo Lucifer Quemain. I can't read Latin, but Oriboris Curisti interim qui vulnerables gentes. I haven't taken Latin in geez, what, at least 35 years from in my, what, it was like 7th, 8th grade I took Latin. Anyway, notice the fifth word of the text, Lucifer. It is not a proper name, but the Latin word for morning star. The word Lucifer occurs 4 times in the Vulgate: Isaiah 14:12, Job 11:17, and Job 38:32, and 2 Peter 1:19. In Job 11:17, the KJV renders the Hebrew word blank as morning. Okay, so in the Vulgate it mentions it 4 times, but in our modern version it only mentions it once. Okay, and it goes on to quote the Vulgate Latin on Lucifer. In Job 38:32, the KJV renders the Hebrew word as Mazaroth, and this is another word that occurs only once in the Hebrew Bible. The KJV translators did not know what it meant, so they simply transliterated it, the Hebrew, into English characters. Even though Jerome, the translator of the Vulgate, knew Hebrew better than the KJV translators did, he was not exactly sure what to make of it either, but he at least tried, rather than simply leave the word untranslated as the KJV translators did. He translated the word as Lucifer, or morning star, which is very close to the meaning of the Hebrew word right there. And I can't even begin to pronounce Hebrew words. That's why I'm not even trying those squiggly Hebrew words. Numquid produces Luciferum in tempore suo et vesperum super videos terrae consurgere facies. The word means constellations or crowns. Modern translators are not sure, though constellations is usually preferred. The fact that Jerome recognized that at least the blank Hebrew word probably referred to stars is far better than the KJV translators did by leaving the word completely untranslated. There is, of course, no conspiracy on Jerome's part here. He is simply being faithful to the Hebrew Bible and is translating as accurately as he can. In 2 Peter 1:19, the KJV renders the Greek word phosphoros as day star, again the Latin Vulgate as Lucifer here. Now phosphoros also could be considered from the Greek theology as oh my goodness, what's his name? The fire giver dude. And my mind went blank again on that. I'm sorry, folks. His statue's right there in New York. You know who I'm talking about. It'll come to me in a minute. Okay, again, talking about giving knowledge. And that's a god from the past. I want to say, and I don't even know why I want to say oh man, Prometheus. Thank you. Okay, Prometheus, the fire giver, the one who supposedly gave man fire, right? The secret to fire. So, in other words, okay, let's go back. This happens. Okay, so the KJV translators knew Latin better than they knew Greek or Hebrew. In places where they were not sure what the Greek Hebrew meant, they simply translated or reproduced verbatim the Latin text. This has happened scores, if not hundreds, of times. Since that time, Lucifer has made its way into the English Bible interpretation as another name for the devil. If there is a conspiracy to sabotage the deity of Christ by translating the Hebrew word blank in Isaiah 14:12 as morning star, the same as it is done in the Greek in 2 Peter 1:19, then this conspiracy goes back to Jerome at the beginning of the 5th century AD. In reality, he translated the Hebrew word faithfully and the Greek word faithfully. It is the KJV that did not translate the word at all, but rather retained the Latin rendering of Jerome in Isaiah 14:12, and worse, simply transliterated the Hebrew in Job 38:32. Jerome cannot be charged with not knowing Hebrew well. He moved to Bethlehem and lived there for 35 years while he worked on the translation. He wanted to learn Hebrew well. Making his home for 35 years in the land of the Jews is sufficient truth to that. So what this is saying here, see, Jerome translated the words differently. He had the one word as Lucifer, the other word, the Greek, as phosphoros, okay, as day star. It's the KJV into English where it got screwed up and it became the same word. But aren't the references to the individuals in Isaiah and to Peter as the morning star in modern translations confusing, and thus don't modern translations undermine the deity of Christ? And the reality that is that in Isaiah, the primary or initial reference of the morning star is not to the devil, but to the Babylon king. The footnote in the Net Bible here says, what is the background for the imagery in West 22 to 15? The whole section is directed to the king of Babylon, okay, who is clearly depicted as a human ruler. Other kings of the earth address him in W9FF. He is called the man in verse 16. According to 1920, he possesses a physical body. At the same time, Isaiah 14:12-15 seems to go beyond a description of a mortal king. Further, if Jesus in Luke 10:18 and in John and Revelation 9:1 had his passage in mind, then it is evident that there is secondary meaning that relates to the devil himself. A double fulfillment prophecy is probably in the view. Here's the point. If the primary referent is to the Babylon king, which the great majority of biblical scholars would affirm, as the evidence mentioned in the Net Bible footnotes list, then our understanding of the use of morning star makes sense. The morning star literally referred to Venus, but in ancient times it was used metaphorically of earthly kings. The note in the Net Bible, 2 Peter 1:19, is helpful along with these lines. And here's the note. The reference to the morning star constitutes a double entendre. First, the term was normally used to refer to Venus, but the author, of course, has a metaphorical meaning in mind, as is obvious from the place where the morning star is to rise, in your hearts. Most commentators see an allusion to Numbers 24:17, a star shall rise out of Jacob, in Peter's words. Early Christian exegesis saw that the passage a prophecy about Christ's coming. Hence, the verse Peter tells his audience to heed the OT scriptures which predict the return of Christ, which alludes to one of the passages that does this very thing, all the while running the same theme of light on a parallel track. In addition, it may be significant that Peter's choice of terms here is not the same as found in the LXX. He has used the Hellenistic word that was sometimes used of emperors and deities, perhaps as a further polemic against the paganism of his day. In other words, morning star or Lucifer in Latin Vulgate literally referred to Venus, we know that, but metaphorically would refer to earthly kings, emperors, and pagan deities. Peter thus may have chosen this word to show that the real morning star was Jesus, not Caesar. Okay. Isaiah 14:12 thus spoke of the Babylon king as the morning star and thus predicted his fall. Jesus and John used this text to indicate that Satan would fall. It is only by turning Lucifer into a proper name, as has been done by KJV advocates, the misunderstanding of the meaning of these texts could occur. The logic of the KJV position is as follows. Lucifer is a proper name, refers exclusively to one who is inherently evil, the devil. Thus, even if translated as morning star, in Isaiah 14:12, it still refers exclusively to the devil. Consequently, for Jesus to be called morning star is to call him to the devil. Okay? Logic breaks down the first premise, viz. That the term Isaiah refers exclusively to one who is evil, since this is false and conclusion is also false. To call Jesus morning star makes him no more evil than calling Satan God makes him good. To argue that since God is not the God of confusion and therefore different words must be used in each verse is to continue to compound a false view of Lucifer as a name for the devil. Okay? And he skips the whole falling part here in his description of this article. See, I believe the connection was made, like I said, where Jesus said, and as far as to the other subject, he's talking about two different things here at the same time, as am I. Okay, the confusion between the morning star being Jesus and the morning star being Lucifer, and then Jesus and Lucifer being considered as the same deity or the same entity. Now, then there's the other confusion about Lucifer being Satan and Satan being Lucifer. And again, connected, as I said before I start reading this article, about the fall and falling from heaven. Okay. It is an illegitimate hermeneutic to claim that because the term in one place refers to one person, therefore the same term in another place must be to the same person. There are scores of examples of a term. Now, also it is, I don't know what he means here by, it is not KJV advocates that say Lucifer is the same as Jesus. That's Mystery Babylon advocates. That's the occultists that try to say that, not people who read the King James Bible. So I really don't know what he's alluding to there. However, Bible referring primarily to one thing person but having different thing person in view of the context demands. As hinted above, God is used primarily as the one true God of the Bible, but there are occasional references which human beings or Satan are called God, even in the KJV. Actually, there are a lot, and it's denoted by the big G and the little g. There are gods, and those would be referring to the pagan gods or the fallen angels who claim to be gods, or the kings and pharaohs who claim to be gods, etc., are always in a small g, and a big G is used for the creator God, the one true God. And further, if pressed, the argument actually backfires on KJV advocates. For example, the name Jesus is the Greek form of the Hebrew name Joshua, which actually that's untrue. Jesus is the Latin form of the Hebrew name Yeshua, because they didn't have J's in Hebrew. So this guy is kind of telling on, kind of screwing up here in his article. But anyway, KJV, which also refers to our fathers came, brought in Jesus in the possession of the Gentiles, whom God drove out before the face of our fathers unto the days of David. See, I don't even know where he's going with this part. The context clearly about Joshua and the Hebrews going into the promised land, conquering the nations there. And it's not Joshua, it's Yeshua. And Joshua, see, is again a Latin. It's not Hebrew, because J's didn't exist back then. So this guy's screwing up in his own logic as he's trying to tear down people that read the KJV, and he also talks about KJV. So he got off topic here to our subject here. I mean, he cleans it up at the end. It is important to note that the KJV translators did a good job, as could be expected in the early 17th century. Our criticism here is not of the KJV translation, but of who have canonized the translation as though it were the only Holy Bible. No, there's older ones that are better. The 1611 KJV is completely different than the modern KJV. So this is the KJV argument against it. Is Lucifer the devil in Isaiah? And he actually went off topic and started talking about, is Lucifer Jesus? So that really didn't serve our purpose here, did it? Sorry, folks. But you see how this gets confusing to a lot of different people. Here's another thing. Is there a difference between Satan, Lucifer, and Beelzebub? Is the question. Okay. Beelzebub. Possibly the best alteration of Beelzebub, meaning owner of the flies or lord of the flies. Baal worship by the Philistines at Ekron, alternately Beelzebul and Beelzebul, possibly meaning owner of the lofty abode, or play on a non-biblical Hebrew word, dung, owner of the dung. Beelzebub is a designation applied to Satan, the prince or ruler of the demons, and religious believers blasphemously accuse Jesus Christ of expelling demons by means of Beelzebub or Beelzebub in Matthew and Mark and Luke. Lucifer occurs once in the scriptures, only in some versions of the Bible. For example, the King James Version renders in 14:12, "How art thou fallen, O Lucifer, son of the morning?" The Hebrew word translates Lucifer means shining one. The Septuagint uses the Greek word means bringer of the dawn. Hence, some translations render the original Hebrew morning star or day star. But Jerome's Latin Vulgate uses Lucifer or light bearer. This accounts for the appearance of that term in various versions of the Bible. Who is Lucifer? The expression shining one of Lucifer is found in what Isaiah phonetically or prophetically commanded the Israelites to pronounce as a proverbial saying against the king of Babylon. Thus, as part of a saying primarily directed at the Babylonian dynasty, and the description of shining one is given to a man, not to a spirit creature, is further seen as statement, down in Sheol you will be brought. Sheol is a common grave of mankind, not a place occupied by Satan the devil. Moreover, those seeing Lucifer brought into this condition asked, is the man that was agitating the earth? Clearly, Lucifer refers to a human, not a spirit creature. And this is by a comment by somebody. Of course, you go on. There's more comments that say there is no difference. They're all the same figure, reference, etc. So again, we have the debate is ongoing, constantly ongoing. Now, in Isaiah it says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations?" So that would negate the argument that we just read, because it's not referring to a man at all if it's talking about how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning. Okay? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations. Okay? Then and Satan stood up against him and provoked Israel. The Job one, where the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, Satan came also among them. The Lord said unto Satan, so Satan has access to both heaven and earth, and he is the Lord of earth. Okay, as far as the controller of earth. Let's see if that's here. Even Jesus basically acknowledge that he controlled the systems of the earth. When he was cast down, he was given control over the earth. However, at the same time, he also tells him it is not his to give, like when he's on the mount and he's being tempted, and Satan's saying, "Oh, I'll give you all this, I'll give you that," and etc. And Jesus says, "Well, it's not yours to give." you know. Um, so, but anyway, Lucifer. Let's read this article here. And like I said at the beginning, I'm not giving you any definite answers. You're going to have to make up your mind on your own. I'm just giving you some information about it. And then you can go and you can do your own research and you can decide whether you think that when Jesus talked about saw Satan as lightning fall from heaven, it means the same thing as, "Oh, or how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer." See, that is the main tie-in. I haven't found an article or anything that actually makes that tie-in. That's my tie-in. That's what I've surmised through my experience, through my reading of the scripture. It's where the connection is and where it is actually brought forth in the minds of men. Now, also, again, back in the early Christian church, people tried to relate all pagan gods, of which Venus, all the planets were pagan gods. Now we know if Venus is Lucifer, we already know Saturn is Satan. They're two different entities, right? So two different fallen angels, right? Or two different cherubs, or whatever you want to say they were. And I would tend to agree with that in that context, okay? However, in today's modern versions, they're brought into one. And that connection that brings them into one is one where in Luke and in Isaiah, that connection of falling from heaven is where scholars and normal people alike have connected the two, Lucifer and Satan. Now there's other people, as in that video that is in question here, that says, and look at that thing's still spinning. I don't know why that thing's still spinning. But let's go to a different chapter. Maybe it'll stop spinning. It's probably slowing down my screen recording by sitting there trying to load over and over and over. I don't know why it's doing that. Anyway, in this video, it is going on the surmise that Lucifer was Satan's name before his fall. Okay, and again, his fall was before Adam and Eve's fall. Okay, or the fall of man, in other words. Because Satan was from the beginning. He was created before Adam was. And that's why he was already a serpent in the garden. Now, let me go back to this. How did Lucifer, and this would be an article that would back up that ideology, okay, or ideology, however you want to pronounce it. How did Lucifer fall and become Satan? Lucifer's fall is described in two key Old Testament chapters, Ezekiel 28 and Isaiah 14. Let's briefly look at both of these. It would seem from the context of Ezekiel 28 that the first 10 verses of this chapter are dealing with a human leader. Then, starting in verse 11 and on through verse 19, Lucifer is the focus of discussion. Okay. What is the rationale for the conclusion that these later verses refer to the fall of Lucifer, whereas the first 10 verses in the chapter speak of the ruler of Tyre, who was condemned for claiming to be a god, though he was just a man? The discussion moves to the king of Tyre. Starting in verse 11, Many scholars believe that though there was a human ruler of Tyre, the real king of Tyre was Satan, for it was he who was ultimately at work in this anti-God city, and it was he who worked through the human ruler of the city. Some have suggested that these verses may actually be dealing with a human king who was empowered by Satan. Perhaps the historic king was a tool of Satan, possibly even indwelt by him. In describing this king, Ezekiel also gives us glimpses of superhuman creature. Satan. I keep yawning. I'm sorry, folks. It's early in the morning, and I don't sleep much. So who was using, if not indwelling him? Now, there are things that are true of this king that at least immediately or ultimately cannot be said true of human beings. For example, the king is portrayed as having a different nature from man. He is a cherub, verse 14. He had a different position from man. He was blameless and sinless, verse 15. He was in a different realm from man, the holy mount of God, verses 13 and 14. He received a different judgment from man. He was cast out of the mountain of God and thrown to earth. And the superlatives used to describe him don't seem to fit that of a normal human being, full of wisdom, perfect in beauty, and having the seal of perfection, verse 12 in the NASB. Our text tells us that a king was created and left creative hand of God in a perfect state, Ezekiel 28. He remained perfect in his ways until iniquity was found in him. What was this iniquity? We read in verse 17, your heart became proud on account of your beauty, and you corrupted your wisdom because of your splendor. In other words, Lucifer apparently became so impressed with his own beauty, intelligence, power, and position that he began to desire for himself the honor and glory that belonged to God alone. The sin that corrupted Lucifer was self-generated pride or self-righteousness. Apparently this represents the actual beginning of sin in the universe. Preceding the fall of the human Adam by the indeterminate time, sin originated in the free will of Lucifer with full understanding of the issues involved, or of Satan, as we would say. See, this mighty angelic being was rightly judged by God. I threw you to earth, Ezekiel 28:18. This doesn't mean that Satan had no further access to heaven. See, so he switches in his article here from saying Lucifer to Satan. And for other scripts indicate that Satan maintained his access even after his fall in Job and Zechariah. However, Ezekiel indicated that Satan was absolutely and completely cast out of God's heavenly government and his place of authority in Luke 10:18. Okay, so this is one view, and this is kind of a view and this is Sid Roth's messianic vision. You know, well, what are you doing, cat? Don't mess with me right now. You always come messing with me when I'm trying to figure out some stuff. So let's leave those behind and let's go to the magical cornucopia and the book of Enoch. And in some Christian doctrines, the fallen angel is an angel that has been exiled or banished from heaven. Fallen being a metaphor for cast out or ostracized, not literally meaning the angels fell. Often such banishment is punishment for disobeying or rebelling against God. One early source of information on angelology and demonology is the Persian prophet Zoroaster. The best and would be familiar with Zoroaster through our Freemasonic readings. The best known fallen angel is Lucifer. Lucifer rebelled and was cast out of heaven and fell to earth for his offense. According to some traditions, fallen angels will roam the earth until Judgment Day, when they will be banished to hell. Some tradition, and I'm adding this, other traditions say they were banished into darkness until that day of judgment, and in chains in darkness, no doubt. According to Revelation 12, the rebel host aggregated 1/3 of the angels from heaven. They fell for 9 days. Their number was estimated in the 15th century to have been in the hundreds of millions. And that's by a tabulation by Cardinal Bishop of Tusculum, and you know, where he got that, I don't know. Anyway, of the term, the origin of the term lies in the Hebrew word for giant. Hebrew word translated as giants here is Nephilim, a plural which itself derives from the root word Nephal, which means the fall. The apocryphal book of Enoch explains that a group of rebellious angels left their first estate, heaven or the sky, and came down, fell to earth, to marry human women and have children with them. Jude makes mention of these angels in the New Testament. Again, it's mentioned in the Old Testament as well in Genesis 6, like I said. Now, here we get to another confusion, or another mistranslation. See, the sons of God were the angels, okay, in Genesis 6. They came down, they mated with the women, and they created the Nephilim, or the giants. Okay, the Nephilim were the offspring of the angels and humans. They were not the angels themselves. And then other people would say that that was actually another word for that would be the Anunnaki. Jude 1:6, and the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting change under darkness into the judgment of the great day. Due to the disastrous results of this forbidden intermingling, may have come to view the word fallen as denoting a fall from grace, though it seems that the original meaning was simply to descend from the heavens. The distinction of good and bad angels constantly appears in the Bible, but it is instructive to note that there is no sign of any dualism or conflict between the two equal principles, one good and the other evil. The conflict depicted is rather that waged on earth between the kingdom of God and the kingdom of the evil one, but the latter's inferiority is always supposed. The existence then of this inferior and therefore created spirit has to be explained. The gradual development of Hebrew language consciousness on this point is very clearly marked in the inspired writings. The account of the fall of the first parents, Genesis 3, is couched in such terms that it is difficult to see in it anything more than acknowledgement of the existence of the principle of evil, who was jealous of the human race. The statement, Genesis 6:1, that the sons of God married the daughters of men is explained in the fall of the angels in Enoch 6:9. The codices D, E, and F, and A of the Septuagint, I can't pronounce that word, I hate it. Septuagint read frequently for sons of God. Oi, agiloi, thou, theou. Unfortunately, codices B and C are defective in Genesis 6, but it's probably that they too read of oi, agiloi in this passage, for they constantly so render the expression sons of God. Job 1:6, Job 2:1, 38:7, but on the other hand, see Psalms 2:1, 85, and Septuagint. There you go, I finally said it right. Philo, in commenting on the passage in his treaty, Quod Deus set immutabilis, follows the Septuagint for Philo's doctrine of angels, de vita Moses, de sominis, and de incorporata mana, de sacrifice, de le allegorica, and for the view of Genesis 6:1, Saint Justice, etc. So the picture afforded us in Job 1-2 is equally imaginative, but Satan, perhaps the earliest individualization of a fallen angel, is presented as an intruder who is jealous of Job. He can be seen as clearly as an inferior being to the deity and can only touch Job with God's permission, or as the ultimate embodiment of pride as per his believed characteristics, trying to prove God's summation of Job's character and faith is flawed. By playing within the limitations of God himself, Satan affords himself the opportunity to cause Job to curse the Lord and thereby, in effect, prove God wrong in order to prove himself to be correct, and therefore superior to God. How theological thought advanced as the sum of revelation grew appears from comparison of 2 Kings 24:1 with the first Parole 21:1. So, whereas in the former passages David's sin was said to be due to the wrath of the Lord which stirred up David, in the latter we read that Satan moved David to number Israel. In Job 4:18 we seem to find a definite declaration of the fall. And I quote, "In his angels he found wickedness." The subsequent of Job contains some instructive passages regarding avenging angels in whom we are perhaps to see fallen spirits. Quote, "If 1,000 death-dealing angels should be against him, not one of them shall wound him." And again, another quote from 36:14. "If their souls should perish in their youth through rashness, yet their life shall be wounded by the angels." 21:15, "The riches unjustly accumulated shall be vomited up, and angels shall drag him out of his house." Goes on, and especially Ecclesiasticus, in which it says in 39:33, a text which, as far as can be gathered from the present state of the manuscript, was in the Hebrew original. In some of these passages it is true the angels may be regarded as avengers of God's justice without therefore being evil spirits. Satan is called the adversary who pleads before the Lord against Jesus the high priest. Our forefathers the loci classici regarding the fall of Satan. Goes on to quote another chapter that Jesus himself has given color to this view by using the imagery of the latter passage when saying to his apostles, "I saw Satan like lightning falling from heaven," in Luke 10:18. So in the New Testament times, the idea of the two spiritual kingdoms is clearly established. The devil is a fallen angel who in his fall has drawn multitudes of the heavenly host in his train. Jesus terms him the prince of this world. He is the tempter of the human race and tries to involve them in his fall. And it goes on, quotes Matthew, Peter, Ephesians, Corinthians. Christian imagery of the devil as a dragon is mainly derived from the Apocalypse, where he is termed the dragon, the old serpent, etc., and is represented as actually having actually been in combat with Archangel Michael. Also an image is given him of a roaring lion, again back to Job, Peter, seeking whom he may devour, as seen in 2 Peter. Gives context and substance of his role as the tempter of the inhabitants of the earth. The similarity between scenes such as these and the early Babylonian accounts of the struggle between Merodach and the dragon Tiamat is very striking. Whether we are to trace its origin to vague reminiscences of mighty Syrians, which once peopled the earth, is a moot question. But the curious reader may consult Boset, the Antichrist legend, by Keene in London, 1896. The translator has prefixed to it an interesting discussion on the origin of the Babylonian dragon myth, reasons for their fall. There are a number of different beliefs regarding the origins and motivations of fallen angels. Many focus on the issues of free will, lust, pride, incomprehensibility of the acts of God. And this goes on to talk about a little bit off subject of what we're talking about, but it does connect. It talks about Satan and Lucifer in the same role. Now I'm going to throw in my own little bit one of my experiences, okay, in a situation where I was in a hand-to-hand combat situation with a human, or at the time he was human, uh, possessed human of some will, or nowadays these people that talk about the reptilians and stuff, they would call them shapeshifters, but it's not really like a shape shifting. It's more like a overlaying. And again, I'm talking here about my personal experience. This guy was, his face was 6 inches from my face. I mean, we were like right there. And all of a sudden, in the middle of our struggle, his face changed and became transparent, or as it seemed to me, an entity came out of this person and overlaid his image. And the entity that I saw overlaying his image was a reptilian. He was a dragon man. And he's actually spoke to me in a different voice than the person's voice. And what he said to me was, "You owe it to us." And he was speaking for them all, because this is what they think of us and how they look at us. They think we owe them something. What exactly, I'm not sure. But he was definitely speaking for more than just himself as an individual when he said it to me. But the countenance is the point of my story here, and my sharing this particular experience, is that he was a reptilian. He was of reptilian nature. He literally looked like what you would consider a dragon man. And thus, I know where the dragon thing and reptilian thing comes from just through my own personal experience of that. It's not a myth, and I consider that entity a demon that was in possession of this person and just happened to manifest into the physical briefly. And now, whether, how it was done, the mechanics of it, I can't explain to you. I can only tell you what I saw with my own eyes and heard with my ears, and what was manifest before me. Whether it was people would call them shapeshifters, but they're not shapeshifters, because they don't change the shape of the human that they are inhabiting. They are like a interdimensional spirit, or an interdimensional creature that comes through. And this is the truth that I'm telling you now of the reptilian line. So let's go on to read here. Consequences of free will is generally accepted by most Christians that fallen angels were cast out of heaven because of the actions taken against God. These actions were enabled because the angels were granted free will. Generally, these actions included active rebellion, doubt in God's motives or plans, rejection of the system of heaven. Pride is often involved, especially in cases where angels are believed to be more powerful than God. Lucifer being the prime example among these. This is often disputed. Origen, a father of the early Christian church, believed that God had created all angels to be equal and free. However, in possessing the power of free will, some of them began to move further away from God of their own volition. Origen states, metaphorically, that although some angels fell and became human or demonic, all hope is not lost. He theorizes that by practicing virtue, men and demons can again become angels. While considered an early father of the church, Origen was deemed a heretic as a result of some of his writings and teachings, which did not conform to accepted scripture or tradition, mainly his concept of apocalypsis, belief all human all beings, human beings, fallen angels, demons, saints, will return to God through God's love and mercy, was deemed unacceptable at the time. His excommunication was posthumously reversed. Now that's actually an accepted, very widely accepted. It is also in some ways not accepted because many of the cherubs or angels are actually created for a purpose and one purpose only. They do not actually have free will. But that's a different story, a different subject. The following comes from a series of ancient texts referenced in the Bible called the Three Books of Enoch, a set of books found in the pseudepigrapha of the Old Testament. According to these books, it is because of lust that some angels fell from heaven. And there we get back to what I was talking about. Because they found God asked the Watchers of the Grigori, a select group of angels, and of course we would know the Watchers nowadays as the Greys, to assist the archangels in the creation of Eden. Those Grigori who descended to earth saw the daughters of men and became enchanted with them. Consequently, the Grigori began to reveal to man some of the secrets of heaven, such as astrology and the vanity of enhancing the face and body with perfumes and cosmetics. The Grigori then fell in love with human women. According to the text, some of the Grigori even took wives and created offspring giants known as the Nephilim. There we go. Like I was saying earlier in the other guy's article where he had it wrong. The Nephilim are the offspring. They're not the angels or, in this case, the Grigori themselves. And it could refer to also the reptilians, which I believe the Anunnaki are. This made God so angry that he cursed those Grigori who had betrayed him, threw them out of heaven, made them mortal, and transformed them into demons. Okay, and God sent the great flood to cleanse the earth, the wanton killing and destruction perpetuated by the Nephilim. Notable angels who fell in this account are Samael, and Azazel, and Lucifer. Okay, and here you have it. Right here, Samael, as I had put in the description box, is known as Satan. Okay, this is before Christianity. He was known as Satan through the Enochian Judaism. Okay, so we go back to this article, and Samael and Lucifer as two different angels. Also, if we go into lore, okay, of Mystery Babylon and the occultic traditions of the planetary as heavenly bodies, we also know that Venus, being Lucifer, and could also be backed up by the Isaiah, and then Samael or Satan as being Saturn in the planetary constructs. Okay, so they are denoted as two separate beings as well, or two separate entities as well. Now, are they two separate in their mission towards man? Maybe not. Since all the angels are fallen, then they all have the same goals towards men, maybe a little bit differently, but maybe a little bit holy. Or holy is the wrong word. I meant holy as in whole, not as in holy. But because it is all about the corruption of man either way you go. So this could also be where the confusion lies, in thinking that Samael and Lucifer are the same entity, because perhaps they act accordingly to the same goals, and therefore are often confused with each other. Right? Okay. Just throwing that out there for you to think about. So, pride. This belief involves Lucifer's revolution against God, well known amongst Christians. Pride, the gravest of the deadly sins, 7 deadly sins, eventually led to the expulsion from heaven of certain beings up to and including the highest order angels. Lucifer, who himself succumbed to pride, was the first and mightiest angel to be created. With intelligence, radiance, beauty, and the power unmatched among all the angels in heaven, Lucifer was second in majesty only to God himself. Fortunately, Lucifer became ambitious and self-centered, eventually deciding to prove his power by raising his throne to the heights of God's throne. Other angels did not approve of Lucifer's plan. They did not want a lower being trying symbolically to become equal to God. When Lucifer enacted his scheme, he was instantly hurled out of heaven. This account of the rebellion might have come from several ancient Canaanite manuscripts that deal with Shahar, one of their own deities. Catholic theologians have speculated that the incarnation of Christ was revealed to the angels. The idea that all heaven must bow before Christ, formed in part of the lesser nature of humanity, motivated the prideful actions of Lucifer, Ceres de Angeles. Okay, again, here's how it can be easily confused as Lucifer. And I say confused, not to say that they aren't. Okay. I'm making this video so you can see all the arguments. That's why I'm making this video. I am not trying to make up your mind for you. Okay? These are simply the arguments. Okay? As for me personally, I do not know. Okay? I can see where Satan and Lucifer could be the same entity in the Bible, in reference, okay? But I also happen to know the occultic, Mystery Babylon, and other views that separate the two entities as two different angels or cherubs. And that is also backed up biblically through the Judaism, as I said before, because Lucifer would be one angel, okay, as Lucifer, and the other angels that would be Satan would be Samael. Now Samael, after he fell, was no longer called Samael because the Lord didn't call him by his name. He calls him Satan because he is the resistor or the devil. Okay? So here you have both stories, and both stories make sense. Both stories could be possible. Okay? And it could be all just an aspect of ultimately the two different sides of the energies which create up our physical manifestation to begin with, which is just positive and negative energy. Okay, you have to have both. If we did not have both positive and negative, we would not have a material world. This is proven in every basis of creation. Okay, clear down to the atom and beyond. Okay, it takes both energies combined and actually working as opposites, but at the same time working together. You see the mystery of the Lord, the mystery of God, and the mystery of creation. Because, and again, that can lead to other confusions that I'm not going to get into here, because I've actually been down those paths too. I've been to that apotheosis type state of mind where the battle is no longer a battle. It's not a battle of opposites, but it's a realization of how both the positive and negative actually work together to create up our material world as we know it. But see, when you go around that circle, you come back around to the other side, and then you're back at the beginning again, which is again the opposites as conflicting with each other. Everything is a circle. Lucifer was the first angel to rebel against God, Isaiah 14, and with him he took 1/3 of the host and all that. Lucifer's the most beautiful angel, so beautiful indeed that he envied God and wanted to receive all his praises. He didn't accept the idea of bowing before Jesus and hated being inferior to any human. Now other people say, again in this context, that it wasn't Jesus that was in question, it was Adam, that the Lord wanted the angels to be reverent to his creation, which was creation in the image of God, right? Which would be man. And the angels are like, you want us to worship that? Or you want us to revere that? Are you kidding me? And screw you, we're out of here. So that's another thesis, and that could be another argument altogether, aside from this argument here, or debate. It's not really an argument, because ultimately it doesn't matter whether you think Lucifer is Satan and Satan is Lucifer. Even as separate entities, they are both, as I just demonstrated and pointed out, they are both doing the same thing as far as corruption of man. Okay? And some people would say, now, others would say, especially if you're a Freemason or certain occultists, that Lucifer is the light bringer. He's a good guy. And that he's just bringing us knowledge. And that he's just giving us, bringing the light. And etc. Oh, and see, that's the Catholic view there. I guess he gets bowing to mankind. According to the Quran, when God created man, he wanted his angels and Iblis to acknowledge man by bowing down to him. Now, that's what I was just talking about. But Iblis did not obey his mandate. Islam does not hold Iblis to be a fallen angel because it maintains that Iblis is one of many of Allah's creations, and that Iblis is made out of fire, as are the jinn. These jinns are divided into two groups, one being that which follows the Islamic teachings, the other one follows Iblis. Okay, it's the same story, folks. It's the same freaking story. Actually, if you take all the religions of the world, they're all telling the same story when you break them down. But again, I digress. I'm not going to get into that. The point being, whether you see Lucifer as giving knowledge to mankind as a corruption, yet not necessarily evil. That's your personal choice, and you'll have to take that up with God when you meet him, But then you have Samuel, or Satan, who appears to be he's not interested in giving you information. He's not interested in giving you knowledge. He's interested in totally corrupting everything that the Lord created, and destroying and lying and deceiving and everything else possible. That is Satan. Okay? So, again, you have to make up your own ideas about these things. This is a good article. I will include it and the website you can go to. Let's go to the fallen angels by rank. Let's go into this for a second here. Some people believe that the seraphim, Lucifer, Belial, Leviathan, and Satan, were the only fallen angels, and those who believe that joined their cause became the first demons. Okay, those who believe in this do not consider Lucifer or the fallen angels to be demons, since they did not rebel against God by refusing his mandate, but rather believe that creatures should bow before only God and no one else. Okay, so there's a hierarchy even in the fallen angel world, or in the demonic realm, and this is true. But anyway, some of the fallen were supposedly members of more than one rank, but this list will only list the primary rank for the rank that is the most well known of each apostate angel. For more information, please see the articles of the various entities. Okay, the first sphere, the seraphim, include Lucifer, Satan, Leviathan, and Belial. The cherubim are Azazel, Beelzebub, Berith, Laviah, Maru, and Selikatol. And then the thrones are Focalar, Fornius, Gressel, Mammon, Murmur, Nikael, Phoenix, Person, Rom, Sonalium, yeah, and Sirti and Barin. Okay, then the second spear goes into dominions. The Baalim, the Marcosias, the Nilia, Oliet, Paimon, Rosier, all these different. You go into virtues, Ariel, Agirs, Belial, Silial, Uziel. The powers is Amy, Beleth, Caru, Corsel, Gap. And then go to the third sphere. You have the principalities. Okay, Belphegor, and Mamiah, Eon, Nestrock, Nethiel, and Varier. And then you have the archangels. Okay, not the good archangels. These are the fallen archangels. The Moloch, the Mephistophelies, the Dagon, the Bethsael, the Enanael, Zagiel, Tammuz. Okay, and then the angels. Ericael, Erixel, Arioch, Armons, Azabel, Aziel, Azaroth, or Azareth, Cain, and Mivart. And then there's others. There's a whole list of others here. Like I said, I'll include this link. And the following list of 100 fallen angels has been taken from the Dictionary of Angels, including the Fallen Angels by Gustav Davison. They are listed alphabetically, not in order of importance. And it goes on with more of the same. So, excuse me, I'm getting really tired here. It's past my bedtime. Oh man, it's like, yeah, it's getting late. So, do your own research, folks. Figure out what you know in your experience. Okay? No sense in arguing with others. No sense in trying to act like, oh, I know what is. I know what it is. You're wrong. You're this. You're that. This video sucks. Okay? If you think it sucks, that's fine. Yeah, give it a thumbs down. Move on your way. I'm not going to argue anymore with people about whether Satan is Lucifer or and one and the same, etc., 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 or was Lucifer, or this and that. Okay? You've had two different views, actually 3 different views here, 4 different views, plus my own. And you can make up your own minds. You still have your mind, right? Figure it out. And with that, I thank you for joining me, because this has been long enough. And like I said, I'll include all the links so you can come look at some of this stuff yourself. Thank you. And may the Lord bless you. The Lord Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.